Okay, so my name is Keith Kellerson. I'm an applied business and organizational anthropologist. And today I have with me Jo Aiken, who has her master's in anthropology from the University of North Texas and her PhD from University College in London, England. She's had a long career at NASA. And when I say NASA, I really mean the United States National Aeronautics and Space Administration, but also Lockheed Martin and Southwest Airlines. So it's great talking to you today. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and where you work and what you're doing now?
Okay, great. It's great to be here, Keith. Thanks for the opportunity to chat. So currently I am a postdoc research fellow at UCL working on a project called Ethno-ISS, Basic Ethnography of the International Space Station.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a really cool project. It's the largest and most supported ethnography of space in anthropology ever conducted. It's funded by the European Research Council, and it includes several researchers. Myself, I'm in the US at NASA. Then we also have another researcher at ESA, Russia, and JAXA, as well as other researchers and PhD students in the UK and London. So it's a really interesting, cool project. I'm very happy to be part of. But yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. And before that, I worked full-time as a civil servant at NASA, the Johnson Space Center. And I've also had various jobs in the airline industry as well as healthcare. So I've kind of done a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. But to work at NASA, I mean, that's a dream job for so many people, you know. So, I mean, how great is it that we have an anthropologist at NASA working on the International Space Station? I mean,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, when I was at NASA, I was the only one I knew that was an anthropologist, the only one I'd ever heard of. And it's I'm hopeful to see hopefully more anthropologists and social scientists from other disciplines get excited and then try to get involved and work for NASA. So it's a great opportunity to apply social science or behavioral science or anthropology in completely new contextual ways. So
It's great. You know, I worked for temporarily for LTG Associates, if you're familiar with them.
yes,
They had a NASA project, and it was to understand how to create innovation teams within NASA. And it was really interesting because the organizational structure in NASA is based on that top-down military structure. And, you know, with innovation teams, you have to be a little more flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was, you know, learning about that and, you know, the sort of the culture clash that goes on was really, really interesting. And I was fortunate enough to do the literature review, and I looked at companies like Lockheed Martin and Apple and Google and all of those things and see what they had to say about innovation teams. So, you know, whether I haven't worked for NASA, I can say I've done research for NASA too.
Yeah, you
It's
did.
great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would, you know, if I would love to work for NASA, that would be a dream job. That would be great. So tell us more about your work at NASA, though. What kind of research did you do, and what kind of projects are you working on?
Okay, so well, I mean, I started at NASA back when I was in my former life as an engineer, and was an engineering intern for many years, and then worked full time as a contractor in mission control, supporting mission control operators. But then I went back to school and became an anthropologist. So my current life as an anthropologist, the type of projects I've been on have been very, very different, which I think speaks to just the applicability of anthropology. We can do so much. So I started out working in human factors engineering, and I worked on my biggest project was on looking at the design of habitats for Mars. And particularly, I focused on privacy needs. So how much privacy do astronauts need on a long duration spaceflight mission? Seems kind of like a common sense question. You know, well, yeah,
Right.
obviously they need privacy. But a lot of what I did for the human factors group is really, and this is a great example, it was really just to make what's common sense empirical
Mm-hmm.
and to add some rigorous research to why they need privacy and what happens if you don't have privacy. So that was one of my biggest projects. I also worked on robotics interaction, and you know, just different habitability projects. And then I moved over to working in organizational development, where I was basically like a management consultant for the directors and did all sorts of projects from reorganizations to innovative teams and helping teams be more innovative and teaching design thinking practices, that sort of thing. So I've done a lot of things different at NASA.
Boy, that Mars habitation project, that sounds really, really intriguing. And of course, privacy, when you see, uh, clips from, the old space shuttle clips or the International Space Station clips, it doesn't seem like a lot of privacy, really. I mean, you kind of, the way they sleep, they all kind of like sleep in the same area and
Mhm.
standing up, and they can all kind of see each other. And that's a tough one because I tend to be very much, for example, the pandemic, everybody's kind of locked down and closed in. It's fine with me, I'm good. So I do like that kind of privacy, and I appreciate my privacy at times. So that's got to be hard. And that's got to be really, really tough. And I would guess you probably had to either research into or partner with some in the psychological realm about that.
Definitely. And actually, with all of the projects I've worked at NASA, it's very multidisciplinary, and particularly with other psychologists, whether it's industrial organizational psychologists or various behavioral scientists. So, yeah, we do a lot of collaborative work. And yeah, it was interesting, the privacy study, because yeah, you do need privacy, but you're still in a really small habitat, whether it's on Mars or if it's looking at the International Space Station. So there's only a certain amount of space you're given. So my job was really to help inform the design standards of saying, okay, you have this much space, how much of it needs to be allocated to privacy? And are there some creative ways of transforming, certain spaces to be public, during the day, public use versus more private use for crew quarters or different activities when they need to be.
It's fantastic. Um, what kind of insights have you gained in your research experience, and that would be helpful for others to know about?
Yeah, so I guess what I've learned about anthropology from working as an anthropologist would just be that we have an amazing skill set, and it's a very unique skill set. There are loads of different ways of studying human behavior, but I think what we bring to the table is a lot more in terms of, an in-depth and contextualized understanding. And so, like I said, I work with a lot of psychologists, and I'm constantly learning from them, their different methods, and, and seeing how we can supplement that in terms of how we can actually go and gain a deeper understanding of what it means to, for example, the privacy in space problem. And for us that as anthropologists, we like to be in the field. We like to actually be there and be with the people we're studying. Well, when those people don't exist yet, because we haven't put astronauts on Mars yet, what do you do?
Right.
And that's where it's been really helpful to learn from other disciplines in terms of how they approach that same topic. And for us, usually in space research, we look at analogs. So we look at people who live in Antarctica, and that's a type of isolated, confined, and extreme environment. So we study people in Antarctica to gain understanding about what it would be like to live on Mars. Yeah, so I think there's in terms of what I've learned, going forward and being a better researcher, it's just learning how to communicate what it is I do in terms of someone else's viewpoint. So trying to drop those big words like ethnography and
Right.
holistic and all of these terms that we love as
Hegemony
anthropologists
and
mean, yeah. But learning how to translate that so that an engineer understands and it can appreciate what it is we do. And
yeah.
so a psychologist, and so it may be a mathematician I'm working with or a statistician. So just kind of learn how to translate for a broader range of people.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what kind of skills can anthropologists bring to research in the aeronautics and aerospace industries, do you think?
Oh yeah, there's so much, and I've it's not just the privacy stuff. Like I said, I've also done like management consulting, and we just bring a different perspective. And again, all of this is collaborative work, but we just bring a different perspective. And for organizations, particularly high performing technical organizations, I really think, having that multidisciplinary viewpoint on whatever their people problems are. It doesn't have to be designing something for Mars, but it could
Right.
be, designing better workspaces for their current employees that they have today. And also thinking about future long-term things. I think any of these people problems, the more insight you have on your teams working these problems, the better outcome you're going to have. But beyond that too, it's just getting to understand what people really mean when they say, for example, they need privacy, what it is they really mean when they say they want to be innovative. What does it mean to be innovative? Not everyone can be Google. Google's their processes are not going to work for every organization, but everybody wants to be innovative. Okay,
Mhm.
so what does that mean for your organization? What does that mean for NASA? That's one of the things I'm looking at right now with my project, which actually, Keith, kind of probably builds a little bit on what you did with LTG. So looking at, what does it mean to be innovative at NASA? Everyone thinks of NASA, of course, being innovative, of course, putting people into space. How can you be more innovative? But internally and on the day-to-day stuff, I'm interested to see what it is they consider to be innovative, and then how can they be more? Where are they lacking, and what are some of the barriers to that?
And it's interesting what you say because anthropology, I think in everybody's mind, they always think of this lone anthropologist, in the safari hat going to some remote tribe, in the rainforest
Mhm.
somewhere and studying those people. But, part of the reason I'm doing this series is to show businesses that those same concepts can apply in business settings and organizational settings, whether you're talking about company culture or diversity, equity, inclusion, or people analytics or that sort of thing. But really, Joe, you take it to a whole other level of you can even do this on another planet, right? You can study
Mhm.
people who are living on another planet that aren't even there yet.
Mhm.
It's truly, truly amazing. And if the anthropological skill set can do that, there's no reason why it can't be applied to organizations of business and other uh, population entities. I don't even know how to describe it, but just whenever there's a bunch of people gathered together in a certain
Mhm.
space, that can be an anthropological field and a domain for us
Exactly.
to work in. So,
Exactly.
I mean,
I
that,
think you're
yeah, it just proves everything. If you
Mhm.
can go to another planet and do it, you can do it here on Earth. So,
Exactly.
what
I
do you
think
think
there's
hiring managers and recruiters need to know to understand the value of the anthropological skill set when it comes to research positions in aeronautics and aerospace?
right. So, I mean, just in terms of what we can do in the day-to-day work, ethnography, again, to throw it back in, one of those buzzwords is kind of a buzzword in terms of organizational practices and design these days. I mean, it's getting to be more and more understood. So, ethnography, looking at it as a process, that's something that anthropologists are very well trained in. So, any organization looking to do that really should have an anthropologist, I believe, on their staff, because they bring that, richness to the field. And with that said, can anyone do ethnography? And when it comes to ethnography as a practice, I do, and this is my opinion, I do believe we can teach people how to do ethnography. That's not a problem. I can teach a class on how to go out and do interviewing, how to do observations, and they can go through that process and they can gather that data. And then when they go to analyze that data, they can still probably come up with some very good findings.
Mhm.
Now, again, back to that collaborative environment, they're going to bring to it their knowledge. If they're psychologists, they're going to bring to it their background and their understanding of how humans behave. So, what an anthropologist brings in is just like what you're saying, Keith, about that knowledge of, we went out into the field, into the, remote islands, and we studied people for so long. Our discipline has a long history of studying human behavior in context. And so when we go to analyze that ethnographic data or whatever it is where, problem you've got us working on, we bring to it the richness that our field brings. And I think that's, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations are still really keen on understanding culture. and they're, we want to build culture and we want to sustain culture, whatever it is their people problem with culture is at the time. But they're looking at, they're looking at maybe not really understanding it to the depth that that the that anthropologists bring. So we bring a lot of rigor to our studies. We bring a lot of background theory. And do companies need to know the theory? Not necessarily. But
You need
does
to know
that
the
mean,
theory.
right? But that does mean that, anthropologists, we bring that just because we have that knowledge, we can get to the answers, I think, in a lot richer context, and also maybe a little bit faster even because we've done, we have that richness behind us. You think of like competencies for engineers or competencies for safety managers. You're hiring a safety manager, you want to know they're competent in safety,
Mhm,
right? So
mhm.
I'm firmly under the belief if you're hiring someone for a culture competency, you need to make sure they have that background in culture. And I'm not saying it's only anthropologists. I'm definitely not saying that.
Right.
I'm saying we're probably right up there with the top in terms of what we can bring to the table.
Well, honestly, that's all the questions I have for you today. Is there anything you want to add or contribute or tell the viewers to keep in mind?
I think just, wherever you see people problems or people challenges, or even I think, like you said, Keith, wherever people are together in one spot, that's an anthropology problem.
Mhm.
And if you're in an organization or a team and you think you don't have anthropology problems, if you have people, you have problems that anthropologists can help you with.
That's right.
Um, so I think just keeping that in mind in terms of, if you're looking to get a broader perspective within your teams to be more innovative, diversity of thought is a huge way or cornerstone of of improving your innovativeness. So I would just encourage people to keep that in mind.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I just think so much um, companies uh, have a lot of challenges, and sometimes they don't always know how to approach or how to solve those challenges. And I think by default, they should assume that it's a people challenge. And I think that's where anthropologists can come in, because the other thing we have a talent and a skill to do is to sort of navigate through ambiguity.
Mhm.
Like, we don't know what the problem is exactly, and nobody
Mhm.
can put their finger on it. But an anthropologist can go in and just by observing the people can probably figure it out really
Right.
quick. And that could be with employees, that could be with the power structure, that could be with customers, that could be with, anything involving any problem in any of those business realms. But I think you working for NASA is probably one of the most fascinating applications of anthropology and exciting applications of anthropology that there could be. So, and I've always thought that ever since, we met at University of North Texas, and our thing, and I heard that you worked for NASA. I was just like, oh, this is great, an anthropologist at NASA. And, it makes sense that, if we're going to put people on another planet, of course you want anthropologists there, right? You want anthropologists studying that because just like the International Space Station, there's diversity there. There's a diversity of people from other countries. Then you try to get into like planet colonization. What are you going to have? You're going to have a diversity of people from different countries that are trying to colonize it. So you've
Mhm.
got to have an anthropologist there. I don't see how you can say, oh no, we don't need that. We don't need anthropologists. That's silly. It's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing. And I think you're making history, to be honest with you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
All right, Joe. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I'm probably going to show this coming Sunday, and hope you have a good rest of the day.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.